The Bellevue Conference Room was the location of the much-anticipated public consultation on inflation. The event was live-streamed on NTN and the Government of St. Lucia's YouTube and Facebook pages.
I mean, we speak about inputs to the manufacturing process being capital, equipment, and the hard stuff, but there's also the softer side, which is the human element. And the cost of labor and what it produces is got to be one of the determinants of how price and competitiveness are moving. So,
a major sticking point for the expert panelists was that of the rising cost of raw materials and the impact on consumers.
It erodes savings, so it means an entrepreneur, business owner, will feel some form of impact. That impact would also redound on the consumer. The consumer meaning the person who does the purchasing of those goods or services. If the rate of inflation increases, then of course your purchasing power or your savings will decrease. Economies of scale. This can affect long-term financial goals and retirement planning. It impacts fixed incomes because of course as the increase of goods and services rise, we see that wages and salaries do not follow suit.
Assistant Secretary General Economic Integration, Innovation and Development at CARICOM Secretariat, Joseph Cox, notes the need for countries to look inward and temper the over-reliance on imported raw materials.
If there is not a fundamental shift in the aggregate demand, in the actual taste, the demand and taste of some of our demographics, in terms of looking to using indigenous foods, albeit prepared in new ways, etc., etc. If we do not do that, then frankly, initiatives such as 25 by 25 could run into a challenge over the medium term. Because if the fundamental aggregate demand does not shift, then all that will happen is that whatever gains that we make can be compromised because people are looking for, are still gravitating towards the larger market. So for example, most of us people would appreciate this point. You ask somebody, any of your children, frankly speaking, what they can identify with, and they can tell you about all the international fast food brands that obtain in the United States, etc., etc. But ask them about the local foods, and they probably look at you as if you're speaking Greek.
Too often, we have processes that are cumbersome, processes that don't make sense, processes that cause waste, spoil, pilferage. Also, so we need to work on processes, and that these processes are within businesses as well as within the public sector, and we have to look at that. We talk about the 25 by 25 program. That's a fantastic idea. Sometimes I'm not sure if the analytic work is rigorous enough. So St. Lucia has a huge food import bill. How much of that food import bill goes towards feeding the local population?
explain.
So we have 180,000 people, but we're feeding 1 million tourists every year. So we have to bring in 5 times as much food. So if we start producing what we eat, are we producing what the tourists eat? So we may have to accept that we will have a huge import bill to satisfy the tourists. What we then need to look at is how can we reduce that, first the element for the local, but also that element by introducing them to substitutes. But we should not knock the fact that we have that import bill just because it's high.
The wide-ranging public discourse covered topics like automation, waste management, shipping costs, and price gouging.
You will find situations where certain businesses, maybe they are hit with an increase, let's say on something that they buy locally and resell. But then they can't, maybe at the time, they can't pass it on, at least not all of it. But later on, they will pass it on. So you will see a mismatch. You'll say, oh, but the price I pay for that same item from the farmer, it didn't increase, and yet I'm seeing the supermarket is increasing. So that sometimes that's one explanation, a delay in passing on an increase in cost. Another thing too is that the retailers generally have to, they have a kind of balancing act in terms of their overall margin. You will see that of course, there are a number of items they sell are price controlled, and or is otherwise essential, and they might not, maybe the margin they are earning on those is not enough, it doesn't meet their overall margin. They have to try to make that up on other goods that are maybe less essential. So they will have a more attractive margin on those other goods. It doesn't, now I do not feel that constitutes price gouging because it's not particularly exploitative. It's only exploitative maybe if as you say, if there is a true monopoly and then they are forcing people to buy something that, like people don't have options.
Commerce Minister Emma Hippolyte says a comprehensive breakdown of the factors affecting prices was provided to the public.
It's one thing to make a recommendation, then you have to analyze that recommendation in terms of the impact on the economy. How is going to impact it? How is going to impact what the government's treasury, the fiscal position of government? And then the Prime Minister, as a government, one of the things that we said very clearly when we came in is that we are putting the people first. And you could see from all the policies, all what we have been doing is to assist, bring some soulagement to the general public. The VAT removal on building materials, sanitary products, placing sanitary products under price control, removing the 6% service charge on goods that are price control, all of it. Giving, increasing the threshold for persons' income tax, all of that is to assist you and others to be able to manage this difficult period.
The public consultation concluded with a question and answer segment that provided lively discourse on some key issues and burning questions from members of the public. Solange Alfred, HTS News Force.